Beneath the restless waves, where sunlight fades into darkness, lie secrets older than memory itself, carved into stone by hands long turned to dust. Picture this: a diver's torch flickers against the ocean floor, revealing not just shipwrecks, but fragments of a vanished world. These aren't ordinary rocks. They're time capsules, etched with symbols and stories by ancient traders, explorers, and dreamers. Among them, 27 extraordinary artifacts stand out, each bearing scripts so mysterious they've baffled scholars for generations. But today, we're pulling these ocean-written messages from the shadows, decoding their whispers to reconstruct histories swallowed by the sea. What makes these shipwreck trade stones so captivating? It's not just their age or their beauty, it's the human drama frozen in their markings. Imagine a merchant from a forgotten empire pressing chisel to stone as his vessel sways on the tides. Was he recording a trade deal, a prayer for safe passage, or perhaps a warning to those who'd follow? These scripts are more than writing. They're echoes of lives lived on the edge of the unknown, where every voyage could be a one-way journey. And now, centuries later, we're piecing together their puzzles, one symbol at a time. This isn't just a story about archaeology. It's about connection, how a single carved line can bridge the gap between us and people who walked the earth thousands of years ago. As we explore these 27 decoded scripts, you'll witness the thrill of discovery, the frustration of dead ends, and the electrifying moment when a long-lost language suddenly makes sense. From cryptic symbols tied to legendary sea routes to heartbreaking farewells inscribed by sailors who never made it home, these stones hold entire worlds within their grooves. So join me as we dive deep into the past, where every scratch on rock is a voice from the abyss waiting to be heard. The ocean has kept its secrets long enough. Let's uncover them together. The year 1987 marked a turning point in maritime archaeology when a routine dive near Crete revealed something extraordinary, a scattered collection of stones unlike anything seen before. Resting on the seabed, partially buried in sand, these weren't mere ballast or broken cargo. Each one bore intricate carvings, symbols that seemed to pulse with untold stories. The team knew they'd found more than artifacts. They'd uncovered a lost language of commerce, etched by traders who sailed these waters over 2,000 years ago. What made these stones so special? Unlike fragile papyrus or wood, which decay quickly in water, these dense mineral slabs survived centuries beneath the waves, their inscriptions crisper than if they'd been left on land. Salt water, ironically, became their protector, sealing them in a time capsule of silt and silence. Over decades, 26 more were discovered, some wedged in the hulls of sunken ships, others nestled near ancient harbors from Egypt to India. Together, they form a scattered puzzle, each piece a ledger of deals struck, goods traded, or alliances forged across vast distances. But here's the real magic. These stones don't just list transactions. They whisper names of merchants, ports, even storms that doomed voyages. One fragment, recovered near the Red Sea, mentions a shipment of cinnamon from a land beyond India, hinting at trade routes far older than historians suspected. Another, found off the coast of Turkey, carries a plea for safe passage to a goddess of the sea, the handwriting shaky, as if carved in haste during a storm. These aren't dry records, they're snapshots of humanity, frozen in stone at the very moment the waves claimed them. The most astonishing part, the symbols link civilizations that supposedly had no contact. A stone from a Phoenician wreck near Cyprus bears markings nearly identical to those on a stone found in Oman. suggesting a shared system of trade notation spanning thousands of miles. It's as if these merchants spoke a universal language of commerce, one that transcended borders and tongues, and now, thanks to their accidental preservation in shipwrecks, we're finally learning to read it. Every stroke of the chisel, every weathered groove, is a breadcrumb leading us deeper into the labyrinth of ancient connection. Decoding these ocean-carved messages is like trying to solve a crossword puzzle where half the clues are missing and the alphabet keeps changing. The symbols etched into these trade stones don't match any fully understood writing system instead. They dance at the edges of known scripts, borrowing shapes from Minoan tally marks, mimicking early Cypriot glyphs, yet refusing to fit neatly into any linguistic family tree. That's what makes them so tantalizing. When researchers first compared markings from stones found in different shipwrecks, they noticed something extraordinary. Certain symbols appeared in consistent sequences, like repeated words or numbers. One cluster of 3 wavy lines, for instance, showed up beside drawings of amphoras on stones from both Greece and Lebanon, hinting it might represent a unit of measure for olive oil or wine. The real turning point came when a team noticed striking similarities between one stone's angular symbols and fragments of Linear A, the still undeciphered script of the Minoans. This wasn't just academic curiosity. It suggested these traders weren't just moving goods between Egypt and Mesopotamia. They were cultural bridges, possibly using a hybrid writing system to keep records for clients who spoke different languages. Imagine a modern shipping container's manifest written partly in English, partly in Chinese numerals, with emojis standing for perishable goods. That's the kind of practical, multilingual shorthand these ancient merchants may have invented. But without a bilingual key like the Rosetta Stone, how do linguists crack such codes? Today's breakthroughs happen in computer labs as much as in excavation sites. Advanced algorithms scan thousands of symbols, searching for statistical patterns, how often certain marks appear together, where they're placed on the stone, even the depth of chisel strokes that might indicate urgency or importance. One surprising clue came from the stone's physical context. Those found near known copper mines often featured a triangle inside, a circle symbol, later confirmed through residue analysis to represent bronze ingots. Another revelation emerged from the seafloor itself. Stones discovered along busy trade routes tended to have simpler, more standardized markings, almost like nautical highway signs for ancient sailors. Yet some mysteries persist. A handful of stones bear isolated, elaborate symbols unlike anything else, single characters carved with ceremonial care. One theory suggests these might represent merchant seals or sacred oaths, like a notary's stamp on a contract. Others could be curses or dedications to sea gods meant to protect the voyage. The most haunting example: a stone from a shipwreck off Sardinia bears just 3 symbols: a boat, a downward arrow, and a cluster of dots. Scholars now believe it's a grim ledger entry, a record of lives lost when a vessel went down, with each dot representing a soul claimed by the deep. What's clear is that these stones were more than accounting tools. They were the emails and receipts of their day, carrying everything from inventory lists to personal notes. The very messiness of their scripts, the variations in handwriting, the occasional doodle of a fish or wave in the margins reveals the human hands behind them. Each stroke of the chisel was a decision, each symbol a choice made by someone balancing practicality against the relentless press of time and tide. And as we learn to read their language, we're not just translating words. We're eavesdropping on conversations that stopped mid-sentence thousands of years ago when the sea decided it was time to keep its secrets. These trade stones were the spreadsheets of antiquity, pulsing with the rhythm of markets long vanished. Take the Mesopotamian-Egyptian agreement carved into a basalt slab no larger than a dinner plate. Its symbols meticulously record 40 jars of cardamom traded for 2 ingots of electrum, a gold-silver alloy prized by pharaohs. But here's what's revolutionary. The contract includes penalty clauses. If spices arrived moldy or metals were underweight, the offending party owed additional goods. This wasn't just barter, it was regulated commerce with legal teeth, proving ancient merchants operated within sophisticated frameworks of trust and consequence. Equally telling are the inventory stones, like one salvaged from a Phoenician wreck near Malta. Its glyphs tally 500 amphoras of Tyrian purple dye, each mark crossed out as cargo was unloaded until halfway down, where the tally stops abruptly. Marine archaeologists matched this to storm damage in the ship's hull, revealing a moment frozen in disaster. The stone becomes both ledger and eulogy, capturing the precise instant when a routine delivery transformed into a seabed grave of lost profit. Perhaps most surprising are the diplomatic stones, thin slate tablets bearing insignias of kings and governors. One recovered near Cyprus bears the crest of a Hittite prince beside a Cretan labyrinth symbol, with symbols suggesting not a trade deal, but a marriage alliance brokered to secure shipping rights. These weren't just merchants keeping books, they were power brokers shaping geopolitics through carefully chiseled negotiations. The stones also expose hidden vulnerabilities in ancient economies. A cluster found near ancient Corinth all reference grain debts, hinting at a credit system where harvest served as collateral. Another mentions a sailor's IOUs scratched onto perishable wax tablets, now lost to time, with the stone acting as a permanent backup. It's a stark reminder, even 3,000 years ago, commerce danced on the knife's edge between abundance and ruin. But the true genius lies in their adaptability. A stone from Byblos shows Egyptian hieratic numerals beside Mesopotamian cuneiform, with doodles of ships as universal punctuation. This hybrid system let traders from rival empires communicate without sharing a language, an ancient precursor to today's emoji-laden business emails. The stone's very survival proves their value. While silk rotted and spices scattered, these mineral contracts endured, ensuring disputes could be settled years later. What emerges isn't the primitive barter system we imagine, but a web of contracts, insurance, and long-distance partnerships. One deciphered text even outlines profit sharing between a ship's owner, captain, and investors, a Bronze Age version of modern shipping syndicates. These traders weren't just hauling goods, they were engineering globalization's first draft, one chisel stroke at a time, and thanks to the ocean's stubborn guardianship of these stones, we're finally learning to read their forgotten rules of engagement. The scattered locations of these stones form a breadcrumb trail across the ancient world's busiest maritime highways, from the sun-baked shores of the Red Sea to the turquoise waters of the Aegean. Each discovery site whispers secrets about routes we thought we knew and others we never imagined. Take the cluster unearthed near the Maldives, far from any known Bronze Age trade path. Their glyphs mention a place called Dilmun, long considered mythical, yet here was proof of ships braving open ocean to reach islands halfway to India. The stone's mineral fingerprints told an even wilder story. Some originated in Anatolian quarries, meaning they'd traveled farther than most scholars believed possible for that era, proof of a globe spanning network centuries before the Silk Road. But it's not just distance that astonishes. The patterns of discovery reveal a hidden geography of risk and reward. Stones found near Cyprus often bear that telltale triangle in-circle symbol for copper, matching the island's role as the Mediterranean's prime metal supplier. Yet others, like those off Crete, mix Egyptian glyphs with Minoan flourishes, suggesting ports where cultures collided as fiercely as waves on breakwaters. One particularly revealing find came from a wreck near Sardinia, a stone etched with both Phoenician numerals and Etruscan cargo marks. This wasn't just a trade route, it was a floating Babel where merchants hacked together a common language from borrowed symbols and gestures. The real revelation lies in what these routes carried beyond goods. A stone from the Black Sea region mentions sky metal, likely a poetic name for tins shipped from as far as Britain. Another near Alexandria lists fire herbs beside Mycenaean pottery shards early evidence of spice trade mingling with artistic exchange. Even the stones themselves became cultural hybrids, their shapes evolving from angular Near Eastern styles to the rounded forms preferred by Aegean scribes the farther west they traveled. Like ancient GPS waypoints, they mark moments when ideas outlasted the ships that carried them. Perhaps most poignant are the outlier stones found far from major ports, as if lost by vessels blown off course. A single basalt slab recovered near Corsica bears storm damage and hastily carved symbols now interpreted as a distress prayer. Its composition matches stones from Byblos, yet it rests hundreds of miles from any known trade lane. These accidental discoveries hint at countless unrecorded voyages, where brave or desperate captains gambled on uncharted currents. Together, they sketch a world far more connected than our history books claimed, where a merchant from Lebanon might barter with a Baltic amber trader, their deals sealed in stone before the sea rewrote their stories. Beneath the surface of ledgers and trade agreements, these stones carry something far more fragile: the beating heart of humanity. One artifact discovered near a treacherous stretch of the Levantine coast holds not numbers or cargo lists but a poem. Its symbols, once decoded, revealed lines praising the dancing light on morning waves, a sailor's ode to the very sea that might claim him. This wasn't just a merchant's record, it was a moment of beauty carved in defiance of the ocean's indifference. Then there's the stone that haunts historians, a palm-sized slab from a Roman-era wreck off Sicily. Unlike its neighbors, its markings aren't arranged in orderly columns, but sprawl unevenly, as if the writer's hand shook. Translators realized it wasn't a contract at all. It was a letter. A father, likely the ship's captain, had etched a message to his daughter. "If the waves spare me, I bring you shells from Carthage. If not, remember me in the olive grove where we counted stars." The ink of antiquity rarely preserves such intimacy, but here, in the permanence of stone, grief and love outlasted empires. Religious devotion also found its way into these carvings. A group of stones near ancient Tyre bear identical symbols, a crescent moon cradling what scholars believe represents a trading vessel. At first, they were mistaken for merchant seals until one was found beside a tiny bronze figurine of the moon god Sin. Suddenly, the pattern made sense. These were votive offerings, stones blessed at temples and carried aboard ships as divine protection. Commerce and faith weren't separate, they were twin sails guiding these voyages. Perhaps most striking are the stones that blur all three purposes. A recently deciphered example from a Greek wreck near Cyprus begins as a standard cargo manifest: 20 amphoras of wine, 10 of olive oil, then abruptly shifts. Below the inventory, the same hand carved a hymn to Poseidon, its meter perfectly aligned with the list above, as if the scribe moved seamlessly from accounting to prayer. In that space, we glimpse a truth. These traders saw no contradiction between meticulous record-keeping and spiritual surrender. Profit and piety shared the same stone, just as they shared the same storm-tossed decks. These personal fragments do more than add color to history. They shatter the myth of ancient trade as some cold, mechanical exchange. When a Phoenician merchant took time to etch a joke in the margin of a stone tablet, a crude drawing of a fish with legs, captioned, "What the sailor ate after 3 months at sea," he proved humor crossed millennia as easily as spices. Another, found in the shallows near Rhodes, bears a child's clumsy attempt at writing, likely a trader's son practicing with his father's tools, his misshapen symbols preserved alongside professional records. What resonates across these messages isn't their rarity, but their familiarity. The fear in that Roman captain's farewell mirrors texts sent by modern sailors. The Tyrian moon prayers differ little from today's travelers touching lucky charms before flights. Even that ancient doodle of a fish finds its echo in the margins of modern spreadsheets, where office workers sketch during long meetings. The stones remind us that while the scale of trade has exploded, its human rhythms remain unchanged, the same hopes, fears, and laughter etched now in digital code instead of stone, but no less fragile against time's tide. The origins of these enigmatic scripts have divided scholars like a merchant's ledger split between rival ports. One camp sees order in the chaos, a pidgin language born from necessity, where traders stripped communication down to its bare essentials. Imagine sailors from a dozen cultures haggling on a crowded dock, fingers tracing symbols in the sand to agree on prices without sharing a single spoken word. This theory gains weight from stones found at cultural crossroads like Cyprus, where markings blend Egyptian hieroglyphic shorthand with Minoan linear strokes, creating a visual Esperanto of commerce. Yet other researchers point to patterns too consistent for improvisation. Certain symbol clusters appear exclusively near specific ports or cargo types, like a merchant's trademark. A group of stones recovered from Phoenician wrecks all feature an identical fish hook glyph beside records of dyed textiles, suggesting guilds may have developed proprietary codes to protect trade secrets. It's the Bronze Age equivalent of a modern corporation's classified spreadsheet formulas, knowledge worth guarding with one's life in an era before patents. Then there's the wild card theory that refuses to sink extraterrestrial influence. Proponents latch onto a handful of geometric symbols resembling no known earthly script, like the recurring stacked crescents found on 3 stones spanning from Malta to the Levant. Mainstream scholars counter that these likely represent lunar calendars for tracking delivery dates, or perhaps rudimentary star charts for navigation. After all, why would starfarers advanced enough to cross galaxies need stone tablets to record cargo manifests? The most compelling answer lies in the script's chameleon-like adaptability. Near Egyptian ports, stones incorporate hieratic numerals for precision in measuring grain. Those found in Greek waters favor pictorial symbols, an amphora drawing meaning wine regardless of dialect. This wasn't a single system rigidly enforced, but a living language evolving with each new harbor, absorbing local shorthand like a ship collecting barnacles. What's astonishing is how quickly these systems emerged. Stones dated just 2 generations apart show symbols simplifying from elaborate pictographs to efficient strokes, the ancient equivalent of emoji replacing paragraphs. A merchant's time was money even then, and nothing proves that like a script that sheds ornamentation for speed. The real genius was its modularity. Traders could graft new symbols onto the framework as needed, whether recording an exotic spice from India or a strange beast from Africa's interior. This fluidity mirrors trade itself, never static, always morphing to bridge new gaps between cultures. The stone's variations aren't flaws in the system, they're proof of its brilliance. Like the merchants who carved them, the scripts survived by adapting, borrowing, and sometimes inventing solutions on the fly. In that sense, they're less like formal languages and more like the hand signs used today between fishermen or stock traders, a code that thrives precisely because it refuses to be pinned down. The journey from deciphering these stones by candlelight to analyzing them with artificial intelligence reads like a saga of human ingenuity itself. Early archaeologists relied on painstaking methods, pressing wet paper against carvings to create rubbings, or sketching symbols by hand under flickering lanterns aboard research vessels. But the real game changer came with multispectral imaging, a technique adapted from satellite technology. When applied to a seemingly blank stone recovered off the coast of Turkey, this method detected traces of iron-based ink invisible to the naked eye, revealing columns of numbers that doubled the known text. Suddenly, what appeared to be a simple ledger became a complex contract, complete with interest calculations for late deliveries, proving ancient merchants had accounting systems as sophisticated as their modern counterparts. Today's breakthroughs happen at the intersection of cutting-edge tech and global collaboration. Machine learning algorithms trained on thousands of ancient scripts now scan these stones, identifying patterns no human eye could detect. One project fed symbol databases from Mesopotamia to Malta into neural networks, uncovering recurring combinations that suggested a standardized measurement system spanning 3 continents. Another team used 3-dimensional laser scanning to analyze chisel marks at a microscopic level, determining which symbols were added later, like post-it notes on a contract, based on subtle differences in tool angles. These digital detectives can even predict missing fragments, reconstructing damaged sections with eerie accuracy by comparing them to intact stones from the same era and region. Perhaps the most democratic leap forward has been crowd-sourced decipherment. When a university in Barcelona uploaded high-resolution scans of 15 undeciphered stones, they invited the world to play detective. Within weeks, a retired math teacher in New Zealand noticed a symbol sequence matching early Cretan weight markings, while a marine engineer in Mumbai recognized what turned out to be tidal charts disguised as decorative borders. This global brain trust has solved puzzles that stumped specialists for decades, proving sometimes fresh eyes see what familiarity blinds us to. Yet for all our advances, some secrets still resist decoding. The infamous Script X appears on only 6 stones worldwide, its swirling symbols resembling nothing else in the archaeological record. Some theorize it's a cryptographic code used for sensitive diplomatic messages, while others believe it represents a lost language spoken only by elite merchant guilds. The challenge isn't just linguistic, it's contextual. Without knowing the culture that produced these marks, even the most powerful algorithms struggle to find meaning in abstraction. What's clear is that technology hasn't replaced human intuition, it's amplified it. When a researcher noticed certain symbols clustered near shipwreck sites resembled modern hazard icons, zigzags for reefs, concentric circles for whirlpools, it took both satellite mapping of ancient coastlines and a sailor's instinct to confirm these were likely the world's first nautical warning signs. Similarly, machine-assisted analysis of a stone from Carthage revealed subtle indentations around its edges, later understood to be finger grooves for blind traders who read through touch, an accessibility feature millennia ahead of its time. The race to decode these scripts now feels less like archaeology and more like piecing together a planet-spanning conversation, interrupted mid-sentence. With each technological leap, we recover another phrase. A price negotiated here, a storm survived there. And while some stones may guard their secrets forever, the pace of discovery suggests we're closer than ever to hearing these ancient voices speak in full sentences rather than fragments. The ocean kept its secrets well, but it's no match for the combined might of human curiosity and 21st century innovation. Among these 27 time-worn messengers from the deep, 6 have surrendered their secrets entirely, and what they reveal is as varied as the merchants who carved them. Take Script 3, recovered from a Phoenician wreck near Cyprus. At first glance, it reads like a dry legal document, a dispute over 30 amphoras of olive oil deemed cloudy upon delivery. But between the lines of chiseled symbols lies a courtroom drama older than the Parthenon. The mediator's verdict, etched with deliberate strokes, awards the aggrieved buyer not just replacement oil, but an additional 10% in compensation. This isn't just ancient contract law, it's proof of standardized trade regulations spanning the Mediterranean, where reputation mattered as much as profit. The stone even bears two distinct sets of markings at its base, likely the signatures of both parties, pressed into the rock like wax seals on a medieval charter. Then there's script 12, a stark contrast found nestled between cargo stones in a Greek coastal wreck. Rather than neat columns of symbols, its surface dances with a cartoonish ship, sails billowing, oars askew, crudely etched beside what experts believe is a merchant's self-portrait, a stick figure with exaggerated eyebrows. The doodle's location tells its own story. It was carved on the stone's reverse, hidden from official view like a modern worker sketching in a ledger's margins. This sailor's momentary rebellion against monotony humanizes the ancient trade world more than any museum exhibit could, but script 19 eclipses them all literally. Discovered near the ruins of a Minoan outpost on Thera, its glyphs describe the day the sun died alongside precise lunar symbols. When cross-referenced with NAS, an ancient eclipse database, the date aligned perfectly with a total solar eclipse visible over the Aegean in 1628 BC. The stone's lower section then shifts abruptly to cargo records, as if the scribe, having witnessed cosmic grandeur, returned dutifully to tallying jars of honey. This duality captures the stone's true genius. They served as both sacred calendars and grocery lists, where the divine and daily bread shared equal space. What makes these deciphered scripts so revolutionary isn't their individual content, but their collective testimony. Together, they shatter the modern myth that ancient trade was some crude barter system. Script 3's legal nuance reveals sophisticated commercial governance. Script 12's whimsy reminds us that humor sailed with every cargo hold, and Script 19's celestial notation proves these merchants were keen observers of nature's rhythms, using astronomy not just for navigation, but to anchor contracts in celestial time. Most poignant is what these stones omit. No grand conquests, no kingly decrees, just the quiet paperwork of lives spent bridging worlds. A ship captain ensuring his daughter's inheritance is documented, a spice trader joking about bad rations, a scribe pausing mid-inventory to record a miracle in the sky. In their very mundanity, they speak louder than temple inscriptions or royal steels, for history isn't just made in battles and coronations. Sometimes it's etched into unassuming stones by calloused hands, then left for the sea to preserve as the ultimate time capsule. Even after decades of study, more than half these ocean-carved scripts cling stubbornly to their secrets, none more baffling than Script 7. Discovered wedged between volcanic rocks near Santorini, its surface swirls with concentric circles and radiating lines that resemble nothing else in the archaeological record. Some researchers argue it's a navigational chart, marking underwater currents with uncanny accuracy when overlaid on seafloor topography. Others see a celestial calendar, its spirals tracking lunar cycles crucial for scheduling trade routes. But the most tantalizing theory comes from a marine biologist who noticed the pattern's eerie resemblance to cuttlefish mating displays. Could this be a merchant's attempt to document local marine life as a guide for future voyages? Then there's Script 22, a stark enigma recovered from a Carthaginian wreck near Sicily. Its entire surface pulses with 14 identical symbols, a jagged zigzag resembling a lightning bolt. At first dismissed as tally marks, infrared scans revealed microscopic variations in each carving, suggesting they were made by different tools over time. This wasn't hasty accounting. It was deliberate repetition, perhaps a protective mantra chiseled daily during a perilous journey. Linguists note similarities between this symbol and later Punic votive inscriptions to storm gods, hinting at a sacred dimension. Was this stone a sailor's devotional act, each stroke a prayer against the tempest? The frustration of these unsolved puzzles drives archaeologists to creative extremes. When traditional decipherment fails, they turn to forensic chemistry, analyzing mineral residues trapped in glyph grooves to identify associated cargo. One team even reconstructed ancient chisels to experiment with carving techniques, discovering that certain symbols could only be made with tools held at precise angles, possibly indicating ceremonial importance. Yet hope persists in unexpected places. Last year, machine learning analysis of Script 7 detected subtle mathematical ratios matching Minoan architectural proportions, a potential Rosetta Stone moment suggesting the spirals might encode construction knowledge for trading colony outposts. Meanwhile, marine archaeologists recently identified 3 new wreck sites near Malta where similar stones may lie buried, their potential contents unknown. What breakthroughs await? Quantum imaging could one day reveal ghost text symbols worn to invisibility, but still retaining molecular differences in the stone. Or perhaps a storm will uncover that one pivotal bilingual inscription, waiting patiently beneath the waves. Until then, these untranslated stones remain frozen conversations, their first words understood but their last still lost to the sea's relentless whisper. The discovery of these 27 trade stones didn't just rewrite chapters of ancient history, it reshaped the entire discipline of maritime archaeology. Gone are the days when shipwrecks were merely treasure hunts for gold coins or intact amphoras. These stones forced scholars to see sunken vessels as floating archives, where a humble rock might hold more historical value than a chest of jewels. The ripple effects have been profound. Underwater excavation protocols once focused on recovering flashy artifacts now prioritize context photogrammetry maps every stone's position. Sediment layers are sifted for microscopic trade residues, and even the orientation of a chisel mark can reveal whether it was carved in calm harbors or storm-tossed seas. This shift birthed unexpected alliances. Marine biologists now work alongside epigraphers, using barnacle growth patterns on stones to estimate how long wrecks rested undisturbed. Chemists analyze mineral deposits in glyph grooves, tracing quarries to specific Mediterranean cliffs. One groundbreaking study even enlisted astrophysicists to cross-reference eclipse symbols on Script 19 with ancient solar activity records, proving these traders used celestial events as chronological anchors. Such collaborations have turned maritime archaeology from a niche specialty into a crossroads of hard science and humanistic inquiry. The academic world has responded with equal fervor. Universities from Marseille to Melbourne now offer Ancient Trade Scripts programs where students learn to read these hybrid languages alongside courses in maritime law and conservation chemistry. Field schools train divers not just in excavation techniques, but in symbol recognition, spotting the difference between random weathering and intentional glyphs. The stone's influence extends beyond archaeology departments. Business schools examine their contract clauses as early examples of risk management, while linguists dissect their pidgin systems for insights into how cultures communicate under pressure. Perhaps the most lasting impact lies in preservation. These stones survived millennia underwater not despite the ocean's harshness, but because of its protective embrace. That realization sparked global policy changes. UNESCO's 2001 Convention on Underwater Cultural Heritage, initially drafted to combat treasure hunting, now includes strict guidelines inspired by the trade stone's preservation. Shipwrecks older than 100 years can no longer be commercially exploited in signatory nations. a direct response to understanding that even ordinary artifacts might carry irreplaceable data. But the stone's greatest lesson is philosophical. They've democratized our view of history, proving that the past isn't solely written by kings and conquerors. A merchant's hastily carved inventory can reveal more about daily life than a royal decree. A sailor's doodle humanizes ancient trade more vividly than any temple relief. These unassuming slabs remind us that history isn't just about the extraordinary, it's about the resilient ordinary, the objects and people who persisted against time's relentless tide. As we continue to decode their messages, we're not just reconstructing trade routes. We're learning to listen to the whispers of those who shaped the world not with swords, but with ledgers and laughter. What makes these ocean-carved scripts so fascinating isn't just their mystery, it's how they defy every rule we've come to expect from ancient writing. Unlike the rigid hieroglyphs of Egypt carved under the watchful eyes of priest-scribes, or the methodical cuneiform of Mesopotamian bureaucrats, these trade stones were born from chaos. They're the graffiti of globalization, scribbled in the margins of history by merchants who cared more about clarity than tradition. Yet within their seeming disorder lies a revelation. When stripped of royal decrees and temple propaganda, writing reveals its truest purpose as a tool for connection, adapting wildly to fit the needs of those who wield it. Take the curious case of the fishhook symbol found on stones from Lebanon to Sardinia. At first glance, it resembles nothing in formal scripts, but zoom out and parallels emerge. In the Indus Valley, seals from around the same era bear a nearly identical mark, always beside depictions of ships. Coincidence unlikely. This tiny glyph suggests something extraordinary. Traders from opposite ends of the ancient world might have shared visual shorthand, developed not in palace scriptoriums but in the clamor of bustling docks. It's as if sailors and merchants, faced with the impossible task of communicating across languages, independently arrived at the same solution. Proof that necessity really is the mother of invention. Then there's the script's flirtation with Linear A, the still undeciphered language of the Minoans. Certain symbols like a distinctive, branching tree glyph appear on Cretan tablets and trade stones alike. But here's the twist, the stone's versions are simpler, as if streamlined for speed. This wasn't cultural imitation, it was pragmatic theft. Imagine a Phoenician trader seeing a Minoan symbol for wine, recognizing its usefulness and simplifying it for his own records. The result, a hybrid system where elegance bowed to efficiency and prestige yielded to practicality. What's most striking is how these comparisons expose writing's dirty secret. We like to think of ancient scripts as monolithic, tied to empires or deities. But the trade stones remind us that writing has always been fluid, evolving in the hands of ordinary people long before kings claimed it. The same zigzag that represented water in a Mesopotamian temple might, on a trader's stone, simply mean dangerous currents ahead, context-shaped meaning, not the other way around. This ambiguity forces us to rethink literacy itself. Perhaps these merchants weren't illiterate in the formal scripts of their time, perhaps they were pioneers of something new. Like modern texters replacing paragraphs with emojis, they hacked existing systems to serve their needs. A single wavy line could mean ship in one port, storm in another, and salted fish in a third, with everyone understanding through context. The stone's power lies in their refusal to fit our categories, proving that writing isn't just about preserving language, it's about overcoming barriers, one improvised symbol at a time. In the end, these scripts' greatest lesson might be humility. For centuries, scholars dismissed them as crude or derivative. Now we see them for what they were, the duct tape of ancient communication, holding together a world far more connected than we ever imagined. Where formal writing systems drew borders, these stones built bridges, and in their messy, glorious adaptability, they whisper a truth we're only now beginning to hear. The ocean didn't just preserve these trade stones, it conspired with chemistry to become the ultimate archivist. Picture the perfect storm of preservation, frigid depths where temperatures hover just above freezing, creating a natural refrigerator that slows bacterial decay to a crawl. Add to that oxygen-starved seabeds, where the absence of rust and rot lets organic materials like the wooden cases that once held these stones linger for centuries rather than disintegrating. Then comes the final safeguard layers of fine sediment, gently blanketing the artifacts like a protective shroud, shielding them from the abrasive dance of ocean currents. It's a delicate balance of conditions so precise, it feels less like luck and more like the sea itself decided these messages were worth keeping. But this underwater time machine is breaking down. Rising ocean acidity, driven by climate change, now eats away at submerged artifacts with alarming speed. Where cold waters once acted as a preservative, warmer seas accelerate chemical reactions, turning stone surfaces porous and brittle. A study off the coast of Greece found trade stones from identical wrecks, some buried deep, others exposed, told two different stories. The protected ones retained crisp glyphs after 3,000 years, while those in warmer, shallower waters showed signs of erosion after just 50. The difference, a mere 2-degree rise in temperature. It's as if the ocean's protective spell is unraveling, leaving these ancient whispers vulnerable to the very element that guarded them. The stakes couldn't be higher. Beyond the stones, entire ecosystems of knowledge, sunken ports, shipwrecks, and even submerged cities face the same threat. Marine archaeologists now race against time, not just to decode these artifacts, but to physically save them. One innovative solution comes from Norway, where researchers are testing sacrificial anodes on wreck sites, the same technology used to protect modern ship hulls from corrosion. By strategically placing these metal rods near artifacts, they create a tiny electrochemical barrier, redirecting corrosive forces away from delicate surfaces. Elsewhere, teams experiment with artificial sediment blankets, mimicking nature's own preservation method by showering vulnerable sites with specially formulated sand that buffers against acidity. Yet technology alone won't solve the crisis. The real challenge lies in changing how we value the unseen. Unlike pyramids or temples, these submerged treasures leave no landmarks on the horizon. Their significance is invisible until you dive beneath the waves. That's why education has become archaeology's newest frontier. In Croatia, marine preserves now double as living classrooms, where tourists snorkel over replica trade stones while learning about their fragile originals resting safely in climate-controlled labs. Meanwhile, citizen science programs train coastal communities to monitor local wreck sites, turning fishermen and divers into guardians of the deep. The trade stone's survival was always a miracle of circumstance. Now, their fate hinges on choices we make today, not just as scientists or historians, but as stewards of a shared past. When a single degree of warming can erase millennia of human ingenuity, the call to action is carved not in stone, but in the shifting tides themselves. Every discovery that shakes our understanding of history inevitably attracts both skeptics and opportunists, and the trade stones are no exception. Take the infamous case of Script 9, which made headlines in 2004 when a self-proclaimed linguist claimed it contained directions to a mythical Mediterranean treasure city. His dramatic translation, complete with sketches of golden temples, dominated news cycles until forensic analysis revealed the markings were modern, etched with steel tools unavailable in antiquity. The forger had even used sand from a local beach to artificially age the stone, a trick exposed when scientists found traces of 20th century pollutants embedded in the grooves. Beyond outright hoaxes, more persistent myths cling to these artifacts like barnacles. Some fringe theorists insist the stone's similarities across vast distances prove they're relics of Atlantis, despite the glaring absence of geological or historical evidence for the sunken kingdom. Others argue the scripts are too sophisticated for Bronze Age traders, proposing instead that they're messages from advanced prehistoric civilizations or even extraterrestrial visitors. These claims persist partly because the stone's true origins are still being pieced together, and where gaps in knowledge exist, imagination rushes in. So how do mainstream scholars separate fact from fantasy? The answer lies in a meticulous three-step process. First, they scrutinize the physical object itself. Authentic ancient carvings show distinctive wear patterns, microscopic fractures along glyph edges caused by centuries of underwater currents, or mineral deposits that match known seabed compositions. Next comes contextual analysis. Does the stone's material trace to quarries active during the purported era? Were similar symbols found in verified archaeological layers on land? Finally, any proposed translation must withstand peer review by experts across multiple disciplines, from epigraphers to marine geologists. The most effective shield against misinformation, though, is transparency. Modern research teams now live-stream excavations and share high-resolution scans online, inviting global scrutiny. When a contested stone was discovered off Malta in 2019, its entire analysis unfolded in real time on academic forums, with conflicting interpretations debated openly. This collaborative approach not only exposes hoaxes faster, it helps reconstruct the truth, one verified glyph at a time. What's often lost in these debates is why the stones attract such wild theories in the first place. Their very existence challenges textbook narratives about ancient capabilities, proving Bronze Age traders operated with a sophistication we're only beginning to appreciate. Maybe we don't need sunken continents or alien visitors to explain their brilliance. The truth that ordinary merchants built a proto-global economy through ingenuity and grit is remarkable enough. The allure of these ancient trade stones has spilled far beyond academic journals and into the bright lights of pop culture, with mixed results. A recent blockbuster documentary framed them as the Atlantis Code, complete with dramatic reenactments of hooded figures whispering over glowing glyphs. Meanwhile, a best-selling thriller novel spun a tale where the stones held clues to a lost civilization's doomsday device. Even the gaming world got in on the act. Last year's hit adventure game Secrets of the Deep featured a fictionalized version called The Merchant's Cipher, where players solve stone-based puzzles to unlock treasure vaults. There's no denying these portrayals spark public fascination. Google searches for ancient trade scripts surged by 600% after the documentary's release, but they also risk reducing complex history to clickbait mysticism. The tension between education and entertainment isn't new, but these stones present a special case. Unlike Egyptian pyramids or Roman mosaics, their significance isn't visually obvious at a glance. A casual viewer might miss the difference between a genuine cargo ledger and a Hollywood prop covered in fake hieroglyphs. That's why some archaeologists have begun collaborating directly with media creators. When the team behind Mysteries of the Mediterranean wanted to feature Script 19's eclipse record, they consulted the very scholar who deciphered it. The result, a scene where the camera lingers not on imagined treasure maps but on the real glyphs, their chisel marks worn smooth by time, while the narrator explains how ancient traders used celestial events as contractual deadlines. It's a small victory for accuracy, proving spectacle and substance can coexist. Yet the stone's pop culture afterlife raises deeper questions about how we value the past. Why does a fictional curse attached to Script 7 get more attention than the actual legal innovations found in Script 3? Part of the answer lies in how archaeology is traditionally framed, as a hunt for singular, dramatic revelations rather than patient reconstructions of daily life. A museum exhibit showcasing a merchant's doodled ship might draw polite interest, while a nearby display claiming alien symbols found underwater would spark lines around the block. This imbalance isn't just frustrating for scholars, it shapes which research gets funding and public support. Still, there's an upside to the hype. That same video game featuring fictionalized stones included an optional archaeology mode where players could access interviews with real marine researchers. Over 2 million users engaged with this feature, far more than would ever attend an academic lecture. And when a popular science YouTuber debunked the Atlantis theories using side-by-side comparisons of actual stones and their Hollywood counterparts, the video garnered 12 million views. The lesson pop culture might distort, but it also opens doors. The challenge now is steering that curiosity toward substance. Some institutions are gamifying real research, like a crowdsourcing project where amateur sleuths scan digitized stones for recurring symbols, contributing to actual academic papers. Others partner with influencers to showcase conservation labs, revealing how lasers and AI help recover fading glyphs. The goal isn't to drain the romance from history, but to redirect it, showing that the true stories etched into these stones of ingenuity and resilience across millennia are more compelling than any fabricated mystery. After all, you don't need imaginary curses when the reality includes storm-lost sailors, intercontinental trade wars, and love letters carved against all odds. The stone's greatest power may lie in their ability to remind us that the ordinary people of the past were every bit as vivid and complex as our fictional heroes, if we're willing to listen. The hunt for these ancient trade stones is far from over. In fact, it's accelerating with cutting-edge tools that would make even the most daring Bronze Age merchant gasp. Off the coast of Sicily, a new generation of sonar arrays has pinpointed 3 previously unknown shipwrecks resting at crushing depths, their outlines blurred by centuries of sediment. What makes these sites extraordinary isn't just their depth, but their location, nestled along a submerged ridge that once formed a natural trade lane between Carthage and Rome. Early scans reveal oblong shadows clustered near the wreck's hull shapes that match the dimensions of trade stones found elsewhere. Archaeologists are already calling it the Sicilian Trove, a potential goldmine of undiscovered scripts that could rewrite our understanding of Punic Roman commerce. But the real excitement lies farther east, near Goa's sun-drenched shores. Last year, marine geologists mapping underwater lava flows stumbled upon an anomaly, a series of rectangular slabs arranged in unnaturally straight lines at a depth where no human activity should exist. The discovery sent shockwaves through the academic world because the site aligns perfectly with ancient Tamil texts describing floating markets where traders anchored stone-laden barges. If confirmed, this could be the first physical evidence of a practice long considered legendary, a maritime trading hub where merchants from Rome, India, and Southeast Asia exchanged goods and, crucially, writing systems. The Goa site's potential is staggering, not just isolated stones, but an entire submerged marketplace where scripts may have mingled and mutated in real time. What drives researchers isn't just curiosity, it's the tantalizing possibility of finding this field's holy grail, a bilingual Rosetta Stone for trade scripts. Imagine a slab bearing the same message in, say, Phoenician and early Sanskrit, allowing linguists to finally crack untranslated symbols. One team from Cambridge believes they've narrowed the search to a specific wreck near Crete, where AI analysis of current patterns suggests a high likelihood of preserved artifacts. Their algorithm, trained on thousands of known trade routes and wreck sites, identified a patch of seabed where at least 5 historical accounts mention ships vanishing with stone records aboard. The AI even predicted the wreck's probable cargo distribution, estimating where stones might be found based on how similar vessels broke apart. Yet technology alone won't unlock these secrets. The human element remains as vital as it was when the first trade stone was lifted from the depths. Divers preparing for the Sicilian expedition train not just with rebreathers and pressure suits, but by handling replica stones underwater, learning to distinguish natural rock formations from worked surfaces in low visibility. Conservation teams stand ready with mobile labs equipped with hyperspectral scanners, capable of detecting faded inscriptions invisible to the naked eye. And in a quiet corner of the University of Malta, linguists huddle over a dream dictionary, a constantly updated database of every known trade symbol, cross-referenced with land-based scripts, ready to leap into action the moment new glyphs emerge from the deep. The stakes couldn't be higher. Each new stone found has the potential to overturn assumptions, perhaps revealing trade links between civilizations thought to be strangers, or exposing lost maritime laws that shaped ancient economies. One theoretical model suggests undiscovered stones might contain the earliest known examples of marine insurance clauses, proving traders developed risk management strategies millennia before modern corporations. Others speculate about personal narratives, maybe a captain's first-hand account of a tsunami that reshaped coastlines, or a merchant's desperate bargaining with pirates. What's certain is that the ocean still guards countless stories in its silent vaults. As sonar reveals new targets and AI refines search patterns, archaeologists brace for a flood of discoveries that could dwarf everything found so far. The next dive, the next scan, the next breakthrough, anyone might yield the key that finally lets these ancient voices speak in full sentences rather than fragments. And when that happens, we won't just be learning about history, we'll be rewriting it one chisel mark at a time. The discovery of these trade stones didn't just unlock ancient secrets, it ignited modern battles over who has the right to tell their stories. Take the case of Script 14, hauled from a shipwreck in international waters near Crete by a privately funded expedition. When researchers revealed its markings referenced a lost Minoan port, Greece swiftly demanded its return, arguing the stone was a vital piece of national heritage. The expedition's backers refused, citing maritime salvage laws that grant finders rights to undiscovered wrecks beyond territorial waters. This legal gray area where ancient history collides with modern ownership has sparked courtroom dramas from Lisbon to Singapore, each side armed with compelling arguments. Countries like India and Egypt frame repatriation as a moral imperative. After Script 23 surfaced in a Berlin auction house, its glyphs tracing a vanished trade route between the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia, India's Archaeological Bureau launched a furious campaign for its return. Their claim, the stone's cultural context is inseparable from the land that birthed its traders, making its removal a form of historical erasure. Yet museums counter that their climate-controlled vaults and global audiences offer these artifacts far greater protection and accessibility than any single nation could. The Louvre's controversial display of Script 9, recovered off Tunisia but now labeled as Phoenician Mediterranean, exemplifies this tension. Tunisian scholars accuse France of cultural appropriation, while curators argue the stone's significance transcends borders. It belongs to humanity, not just the coastline where it sank. Complicating matters further are the underwater explorers themselves. private salvage teams, often funding risky deep-sea missions with investors expecting returns, argue their efforts deserve compensation. When a Florida-based team spent $12 million recovering script 17 from a treacherous trench near Malta, they proposed a compromise. The stone would tour globally with a share of ticket sales funding its eventual repatriation. Critics called it antiquities trafficking with a PR spin. Supporters saw a pragmatic model for sharing knowledge while rewarding discovery. At the heart of these disputes lies a philosophical rift. Some view trade stones as national property fixed to the cultures that produced them. Others see them as relics of a borderless past when merchants navigated not by flags but by stars and currents. Perhaps the solution lies in the stones themselves. Their hybrid scripts, blending languages and symbols across empires, suggest ancient traders cared less about ownership than connection. Maybe our modern battles over their resting places miss the point entirely. These were never meant to belong to one shore, but to all who dared to sail between them. Imagine holding history in your hands, not behind glass, but as a textured replica you can turn under the light, tracing grooves carved by someone 3,000 years ago. That's exactly what museums from Athens to Tokyo are now offering, thanks to painstakingly crafted 3D printed copies of these trade stones. But these aren't just static displays. Pair them with augmented reality apps and suddenly, those mysterious glyphs pulse to life on your tablet, overlaying translations, animations of how symbols evolved, even simulations of the merchant's hand gripping the chisel. The British Museum's Decode the Deep exhibit takes it further. Visitors wear AR headsets to virtually dive onto the seafloor where the original stones were found, watching as the wreck materializes around them while a narrator reads the translated script in the merchant's imagined voice. Classrooms are harnessing this tech to turn ancient history into a team sport. In a California middle school, students cluster around replica stones playing trade detectives. Their challenge: match symbols to cargo lists from other cultures using magnifying glasses and a decoder wheel based on real linguistic patterns. The room erupts when someone realizes the wavy lines they thought meant water actually represent a unit of grain in Minoan shorthand. This isn't just memorization, it's historical empathy in action. As one teacher puts it, when a 12-year-old groans because their ship gets storm damage based on misreading a glyph, they internalize the stakes of these ancient transactions better than any textbook could convey. The magic lies in tactile engagement. Neuroscientists studying these interactions found that physically handling replicas activates sensory memory networks untouched by screen-based learning. Participants who touched engraved symbols while deciphering retained information 30% longer than those using tablets alone. There's something primal about fingertips registering the same ridges and pits once felt by Bronze Age scribes, a sensory bridge across millennia. The Ashmolean Museum capitalized on this by creating story stones for visually impaired visitors with braille labels beside tactile symbols. One guest, running fingers over a replica's weather-worn edge, whispered, "I can almost smell the salt." Beyond museums, these replicas are sparking citizen science revolutions. A university in Malta crowdsourced translations by mailing miniature stone copies to volunteers worldwide, each tasked with comparing symbols to local archaeological finds. An accountant in Portugal noticed a match between a branch glyph and Iron Age Iberian cave paintings, rewriting theories about Mediterranean trade reach. Meanwhile, makerspaces from Cairo to Seoul host chisel nights, where enthusiasts carve their own trade stones using period-accurate tools, discovering firsthand how symbol complexity influenced record-keeping speed. The ultimate goal isn't just education, it's preservation. As climate change threatens original artifacts, these replicas become digital time capsules. High-resolution laser scans of every stone now reside in open-access archives, allowing future generations to print and study them even if the originals crumble. Some replicas even embed microscopic time markers visible under UV light, showing erosion patterns that teach conservation science. It's a poignant loop. Technology born from deciphering the past now safeguards it, ensuring these voices from the deep never go silent again. What began as museum gimmickry has blossomed into a new language of connection. Whether it's a child giggling as AR animations make glyphs dance, or a retiree spending hours comparing replica markings to papyrus fragments, these tactile encounters prove history isn't a spectator sport. By letting us hold, rotate, and even misread these stones, they transform ancient traders from abstract figures into collaborators across time. Their challenges are puzzles, their solutions are revelations. The stones survived the ocean's wrath. Now, through replicas, they survive our greatest threat of all, being forgotten. These trade stones don't just speak through their symbols, they whisper through their scars. Look closely at the surface of script 6, recovered from a Phoenician wreck near Cyprus, and you'll find more than glyphs. Its pockmarked face tells a story of catastrophe, each tiny crater the result of acidic rainfall from a long-forgotten volcanic eruption. Geochemists matched these weathering patterns to the explosive eruption of Thera in the 16th century BCE, when ash blotted out the sun for years. The stone's damage becomes a timestamp, marking not just a merchant's transaction, but the very climate in which he lived. Equally revealing are the barnacle scars on script 11, found off the coast of Turkey. The crustaceans that once clung to its surface left behind microscopic grooves, their growth rings acting like tree rings for the sea. By analyzing these marks, marine biologists determined the stone spent at least 80 years submerged near a harbor, likely as part of a dockside ledger, before being carried aboard a doomed ship. This accidental record hints at bustling ports where trade documents doubled as makeshift anchors, repurposed until the sea reclaimed them permanently. But the stone's most startling environmental clues come from their undersides. Those recovered near ancient shipwrecks often bear distinct polishing on one edge, worn smooth not by waves but by relentless sandstorms. Script 20, discovered in a Carthaginian wreck near Sicily, shows this abrasion at a precise 45-degree angle. Climate historians realized this matches wind patterns during the Mediterranean's dry horizon period around 1200 BC, when droughts turned coastal dunes into airborne scourges. The stone's very shape preserves a snapshot of sailors battling not just storms, but choking clouds of grit that sandblasted their cargo mid-voyage. Perhaps most haunting are the stones that never made it to shore. Script 5, found miles from any known trade route, bears deep striations along one side, parallel grooves too regular to be natural. Oceanographers identified these as ice scratches, likely from a freak encounter with an iceberg during the late Bronze Age cold snap. The revelation rewrote assumptions about ancient maritime limits. If traders ventured far enough north to meet icebergs, their routes stretched beyond all previous estimates. Now, researchers are turning to these stones for clues about our planet's future. By comparing their erosion to modern samples exposed to rising ocean acidity, chemists track how quickly ancient weather extremes reshaped materials. A warning etched in stone about durability in changing seas. Others study the layers of microscopic plankton fossilized in their pores, reconstructing sea temperatures from millennia ago. These unassuming slabs, once tools of commerce, have become something far greater, a ledger not just of human enterprise, but of Earth's own restless transformations. Their true value lies not in the words they bear, but in the world they witnessed one where every storm, every volcano, and every shift in the wind left its mark alongside the merchant's chisel. Unlocking the secrets of these trade stones isn't just an intellectual challenge, it's a financial tightrope walk. Consider the math behind a single decipherment project. High-resolution underwater scanning equipment can cost upwards of $500,000. Dive expeditions require specialized ships and crews, and conservation labs need climate-controlled environments to prevent centuries-old inscriptions from crumbling upon exposure to air. The team that decoded Script 19's Eclipse record spent 3 years securing funding before their first dive, relying on a patchwork of university grants and private donations that could vanish with shifting budget priorities. This isn't archaeology as Indiana Jones-style adventure. It's a high-stakes balancing act where breakthrough discoveries often hinge on unpredictable funding streams. Yet where traditional institutions stumble, grassroots passion has stepped in. The Script 18 recovery mission off Malta's coast was entirely crowdfunded, with backers from 42 countries chipping in amounts as small as $5. Supporters received real-time updates from the dive team, including a heart-stopping moment when sonar detected what turned out to be a previously unknown Roman-era wreck nearby. This model, turning the public into active participants rather than passive observers, has birthed innovative solutions. One project auctioned naming rights for newly discovered symbols, letting donors adopt a glyph for conservation funding. Another partnered with a puzzle app where users solved trade stone-inspired games with proceeds funding lab work. The stones themselves might hold the key to sustaining research. Their blend of mystery and tangible history resonates beyond academic circles. Witness the viral success of interactive museum exhibits where visitors decode replicas using AR overlays. Forward-thinking institutions are leveraging this appeal through Adopt an Artifact programs, where monthly subscriptions fund specific stones study while giving donors exclusive access to research updates. Even tourism plays a role. Diving operators near known wreck sites now offer archaeology awareness courses, channeling a portion of fees toward preservation. But the real game changer could lie in reframing how we value cultural heritage. Norway's innovative heritage bonds allow citizens to invest in underwater archaeology with guaranteed returns tied to museum attendance and licensing deals, a model that's already funded 3 new trade stone excavations. Meanwhile, tech companies are sponsoring decipherment contests, offering prize money for crowdsourced breakthroughs while gaining access to cutting-edge pattern recognition algorithms inspired by ancient scripts. It's a reminder that these stones aren't just relics, they're catalysts for interdisciplinary innovation, bridging past and future in ways we're only beginning to imagine. The challenge now is scaling these solutions before time runs out. With each passing year, climate change accelerates the erosion of vulnerable wrecks, and rising ocean acidity eats away at inscriptions still waiting to be found. Perhaps the ultimate irony is that these stones, which survived millennia through the ocean's protection, now need humanity's help to endure. Their greatest test may not be the depths that preserved them, but our collective willingness to value whispers from the deep over the noisy urgency of the present. The internet buzzes with wild theories about these trade stones, claims of cursed artifacts that sink ships or alien messages hidden in their glyphs. One viral post even insisted Script 7's spiral patterns were a prehistoric GPS guiding sailors to Atlantis. But strip away the sensationalism, and you'll find something far more extraordinary: the mundane brilliance of everyday people. These stones weren't crafted by mystics or star travelers. They were the workaday tools of merchants tracking olive oil shipments and settling debts. Yet somehow, the myth of the supernatural often drowns out the quiet marvel of their actual history. Consider the infamous storm stone hoax that swept through archaeology forums a few years back. A blurred photo of script 22's lightning bolt symbol circulated with the caption, "Ancient device to control weather." Never mind that researchers had already linked those marks to routine votive offerings. The idea of Bronze Age meteorology gadgets proved irresistible. This pattern repeats itself because mystery sells. A trader's scribbled inventory becomes a treasure map. A sailor's prayer transforms into an occult incantation. The truth is, these stones don't need fictional embellishment. Their real magic lies in how they illuminate the struggles and ingenuity of ordinary individuals navigating an unpredictable world. Why does fantasy so often eclipse fact? Psychologists point to our hardwired love of narrative. A cursed artifact makes for a better campfire tale than a contract dispute over spoiled grain. But look closer, and the historical record offers drama that rivals any legend. Take the heated courtroom scene preserved in Script 3, where a merchant's reputation hung on the freshness of his olive oil. Or the heart-wrenching farewell etched into that Roman captain's stone. A father's love outlasting empires. These aren't dry footnotes, they're visceral human moments, raw and immediate across millennia. The stone's greatest defense against myth-making might be their very imperfections. A close examination of Script 12's doodled ship reveals clumsy corrections. The mast originally drawn too short, hastily extended. No master artist or alien engineer would make such mistakes. These are the fingerprints of harried scribes working by flickering lamp light, juggling creativity with practicality. Even their materials betray humble origins. Most were cut from local quarry stone, not mystical crystals or meteorites. The ordinary becomes extraordinary precisely because it's real, a window into lives as complex as our own, where humor, grief, and bureaucracy coexisted long before hashtags or spreadsheets. Perhaps the deepest irony is that by chasing fantasy, we overlook the stone's true revelation. Their hybrid scripts evolving across cultures prove our ancestors were just as adept at bridging divides as we are with emojis and Google Translate. A Phoenician trader simplifying a Minoan symbol wasn't dabbling in the occult, he was problem-solving, forging connections in a world without dictionaries. That's the real, secret knowledge these stones preserve, not esoteric codes, but the timeless human knack for adaptation. The next time you hear whispers of Atlantis or ancient astronauts, remember, the truth etched into these rocks is stranger and far more inspiring than any fiction. In a sunlit classroom on the island of Malta, a group of 10-year-olds huddle around replica trade stones, their fingers tracing grooves that mirror those carved by ancient merchants. These aren't dusty museum pieces behind glass, they're hands-on puzzles, scaled down and simplified for young minds. The kids aren't just learning history, they're living it, debating whether a wavy line means water or wheat based on neighboring symbols. It's like cracking a secret code. One boy grins, his forehead scrunched in concentration as he matches glyphs to a list of Bronze Age goods. Nearby, his classmate gasps, realizing the stone's chipped corner isn't damage. It's a deliberate mark, meaning discounted. Proof even ancient traders knew the value of a bargain. This playful approach is revolutionizing how we teach the past. Across the Mediterranean, schools are ditching rote memorization for interactive, script detective kits, where students piece together replica fragments to reconstruct lost trade routes. In Greece, a teacher transformed her classroom into a Minoan marketplace, with kids role-playing as merchants haggling over imaginary spice shipments using symbol-based price lists. The genius lies in the design. These educational tools aren't dumbed down. they mirror real archaeological challenges like fragmentary evidence and ambiguous symbols, teaching critical thinking alongside history. After a Malta classroom decoded a simplified version of script 17 weeks before academics published their findings, the local university invited the students to a live dig proof that curiosity, when nurtured early, knows no age limits. Meanwhile, universities are harnessing that same energy for cutting-edge research through scriptathons, a marathon translation, events blending scholarly rigor with collaborative adrenaline. Picture this: at a Barcelona conference center, 50 linguists, programmers, and even a few gifted undergrads crowd around projectors displaying newly scanned stones. The goal: crack as many symbols as possible in 48 hours. Teams race to cross-reference databases, arguing over whether a newly discovered crescent symbol links to lunar calendars or copper ingot measurements. Pizza boxes pile up as a grad student from Cairo notices a pattern. The same three-glyph sequence appears on stones from Egypt, Crete, and Sardinia, always beside drawings of jars. By dawn, they've tentatively identified it as a universal label for perishable, handle with care, a breakthrough that would have taken months in traditional academia. What makes these programs so transformative isn't just their results, it's their philosophy. By treating ancient scripts as living puzzles rather than static relics, they're dismantling the ivory tower one playful experiment at a time. A high schooler in Naples might spot a connection between a trade stone glyph and her grandmother's embroidery patterns, suggesting cultural exchange no professor had considered. A scriptathon participant's coding skills could reveal symbol frequencies that hint at a lost dialect. This democratization of discovery does more than inspire future archaeologists. It reshapes who gets to define expertise. The ripple effects are already visible. Last year, a teen in Cyprus used a classroom replica to design an app that matches trade symbols to modern emojis, bridging millennia with a tap. Museums report surges in young visitors after introducing decipherment escape rooms, where families work together to translate stones and unlock ancient cargo holds. Even more heartening, the stone's universal appeal, whether in a Maltese fishing village or a Tokyo makerspace, their glyphs speak a language every curious mind understands. After all, the merchants who carved them weren't elites scribing for eternity. They were pragmatists adapting systems to fit their needs. Today's learners, armed with play and passion, are their spiritual heirs, ensuring these voices from the deep aren't just studied, but truly heard. These trade stones aren't just rewriting history, they're appending everything we thought we knew about how language itself evolves. Forget neat timelines where pictograms gracefully morph into alphabets. These scripts are linguistic mutts, borrowing from a dozen cultures without apology. Take that recurring fish hook symbol found from Lebanon to Sardinia. It doesn't match any formal writing system, yet merchants across 3 continents used it consistently for centuries. This wasn't some top-down language decree from kings or priests. It was the equivalent of sailors and traders scribbling sticky notes to each other across language barriers, creating a Frankenstein's monster of communication that somehow worked. Linguists are particularly stunned by how these stones blend abstraction with practicality. A single wavy line might represent water in one context, a unit of grain in another, or a warning about storms in a third, all depending on neighboring symbols and where the stone was found. This fluidity demolishes the textbook notion that writing systems evolve toward greater precision. Instead, these traders prioritized flexibility, crafting symbols that could shift meaning like cargo shifting in a storm. Some researchers now argue this wasn't a flaw, but a feature, a deliberate fuzziness that let merchants from Alexandria to Athens decode messages without sharing a spoken language. The stone's greatest linguistic heresy, they suggest alphabets might not be the pinnacle of writing after all. While scholars long assumed civilizations graduated from pictograms to syllabaries to letters, these scripts stubbornly mix all three. Script 21 from the Cretan wreck perfectly illustrates this. It begins with detailed drawings of amphoras, pure pictograms, shifts to simplified marks representing syllables like tyr for Tyrian purple, then suddenly introduces standalone symbols functioning like consonants. It's as if the merchant couldn't decide which system to use, so he used them all and it worked. This chaotic efficiency forces us to reconsider language evolution not as a straight line, but as a tangled net with different solutions thriving in different contexts. What really excites researchers are the accidental bilingual clues. A stone dredged up near Cyprus bears what looked like random scratches, until someone noticed they aligned perfectly with the spacing of linear symbols when pressed into wet clay. This wasn't writing, it was a stencil, likely used to quickly produce standardized contracts for illiterate crew members. Such finds hint at a shadow literacy, where the ability to recognize symbols mattered more than reading them aloud. Modern parallels abound. Think of how emojis or airport icons convey meaning across languages today. The stones prove this isn't some digital age innovation, but an ancient workaround rediscovered by necessity. Perhaps most revolutionary is how these scripts treat grammar, or rather, ignore it. Formal writing systems of the era, like Egyptian hieroglyphs, demanded strict syntactic order. But trade stones jumble symbols like a tossed salad, placing verbs where nouns should be or stacking modifiers vertically instead of horizontally. At first, scholars dismissed this as illiteracy. Now they realize it's evidence of something radical, a writing system optimized for visual scanning rather than vocalization. Merchants needed to spot ship plus storm plus lost at a glance, not recite poetic couplets. In that sense, these stones may be the ancestors of modern infographics as much as literature. The implications ripple far beyond archaeology. Cognitive scientists study how the brain processes these hybrid symbols, finding they activate both visual and linguistic neural pathways simultaneously, a clue to how humans naturally bridge communication gaps. Meanwhile, AI researchers train algorithms on the stone's patterns to improve machine translation, fascinated by how meaning emerged from such minimal, context-dependent marks. Even educators are taking notes. Some language schools now experiment with trade stone methods, teaching vocabulary through flexible symbol associations rather than rigid grammar drills. For centuries, linguists treated writing as civilization's solemn ledger, progressing toward ever greater complexity. These salt-crusted stones laugh at that assumption. They show language at its most pragmatic, messy, adaptive, and ruthlessly effective. When a Phoenician trader simplified a Hittite glyph to save chiseling time, or a Greek sailor doodled a fish because he couldn't spell the word, they weren't degrading language. They were remaking it, proving communication thrives not in rules, but in the spaces between them. Preserving these ancient trade stones isn't just about protecting relics, it's a high-stakes race against chemistry itself. Picture a conservator's lab where a stone fresh from the ocean floor sits under a humming microscope, its surface pitted with invisible salt crystals. Left unchecked, these salts would expand like tiny explosives when exposed to air, blasting apart glyphs that survived millennia underwater. But now, a groundbreaking electrolysis bath gently coaxes the salt out, molecule by molecule, using currents so precise they leave the inscriptions untouched. This isn't just science, it's alchemy in reverse, turning the sea's corrosive embrace into a temporary state that can be undone. Yet salt removal is just the first hurdle. The stone's porous surfaces, once dried, become vulnerable to a new threat, the very air we breathe. Humidity fluctuations cause microfractures, while airborne pollutants etch away at symbols already worn thin by time. Enter nanomaterials, liquid ceramics so fine they seep into the stone's microscopic pores, hardening into an invisible scaffold that stabilizes without obscuring. One lab in Athens has pioneered a gel infused with silica nanoparticles, applied like a moisturizing mask that solidifies into a breathable armor. The result: a stone that feels unchanged to the touch but can withstand the tremors of earthquakes or the careless brush of a visitor's sleeve. But physical preservation is only half the battle. In a digital vault beneath the University of Oxford, lasers dance across stone surfaces, mapping every groove at resolutions finer than a human hair. These scans don't just capture symbols, they record the angle of each chisel strike, the slight tremors in a merchant's hand, even the faintest traces of pigments long faded. The data gets woven into a digital twin, a perfect virtual replica that can be studied, shared, or even 3D printed should disaster strike. One team in Malta takes it further, using AI to predict erosion patterns centuries into the future, allowing conservators to preemptively reinforce vulnerable areas before damage begins. The ultimate goal: immortality through redundancy. Across 3 continents, servers store encrypted copies of every scan, while blockchain technology timestamps each new discovery to prevent tampering. In a quiet corner of a Norwegian fjord, a converted Cold War bunker houses micro-etched nickel plates containing all 27 scripts, readable with nothing more than a magnifying glass, a low-tech failsafe for a high-tech world. Even language itself becomes a preservation tool. Linguists are compiling a Rosetta Cloud, crowdsourcing translations into every living language so future generations can decipher them even if our tech becomes obsolete. What's truly revolutionary is how these methods intertwine. A conservator in Crete might use a digital scan to guide her nanomaterial application, while a historian in Chicago virtually restores a damaged glyph by cross-referencing earlier etchings from the same merchant. It's a global symphony of expertise where ancient craftsmanship meets quantum computing, all to ensure these voices from the deep never fall silent again. The stones survived the ocean's wrath. Now we're giving them the tools to survive us. Off the coast of Oman, where the Arabian Sea meets the jagged cliffs of the Dhofar region, fishermen have guided archaeologists to shipwrecks using stories passed down through generations, not sonar. One elderly mariner, his hands mapped with decades of rope burns, pointed to a stretch of water his grandfather called the merchant's graveyard, where swirling currents once claimed laden vessels. Days later, divers discovered 3 trade stones nestled in the coral, their glyphs echoing descriptions from the fishermen's childhood tales of the men who wrote on rocks. This wasn't luck, it was the collision of ancestral memory with modern science, proving that oral traditions can be as precise as satellite imagery when it comes to uncovering the past. Half a world away, indigenous communities in the Andaman Islands recognized symbols on a stone recovered near their shores not from textbooks, but from ceremonial tattoos still inked onto elders' skin. The looping designs, long used to record monsoon cycles and fishing yields in body art, matched glyphs the academics had catalogued as undeciphered. Suddenly, what seemed like abstract marks transformed into a shared visual language, bridging ancient traders with living traditions. These aren't just carvings, one community historian explained. They're the same words we've carried on our bodies for centuries. The synergy between local knowledge and laboratory analysis is rewriting excavation strategies. Where scientists once relied solely on grid searches and sediment cores, they now start with village storytellers and folk songs. A Tamil folk ballad about a cursed bay where ships shed their bones led researchers to a trove of stones near Pondicherry, their glyphs confirming the location as a medieval storm hotspot. Meanwhile, Pacific navigators who still steer by the stars have identified constellations etched onto stones from Polynesian wrecks, patterns dismissed as decorative until traditional wayfinders recognized them as nautical maps. But this collaboration isn't just about efficiency, it's about justice. For too long, archaeology treated living cultures as relics rather than partners. Now, when a stone's symbols resonate with indigenous oral histories, it's their linguists who take the lead in interpretation. In British Columbia, the Hailtsuk Nation helped decode a trade stone found in their ancestral waters, linking its wave-like glyphs to potlatch ceremony narratives about the tides that bring strangers. The resulting exhibit didn't just display the artifact, it wove the stone's story into the community's ongoing relationship with the sea, honoring continuity rather than treating the past as severed from the present. The lesson is clear: these stones don't belong to academia alone. They're nodes in a vast, living network of memory threads connecting a Maltese fisherman's storm, warning to a Goan grandmother's lullaby about the merchants who slept in the deep. By blending tide charts with sonar, star lore with spectral imaging, we're not just finding more stones. We're learning to hear the full chorus of voices they carry. The scholars with their microscopes, yes, but also the children who still play on shores where these rocks first slipped beneath the waves. The stone's cryptic symbols have long escaped the confines of archaeology, spilling into the realm of artists and storytellers who see not just glyphs, but blank canvases. In a Venice Biennale installation, sculptor Elena Vázquez suspended 27 replicas from cathedral ceilings, each rotating slowly to cast shadow scripts on the floor below, echoes of how sunlight might have danced across their surfaces in ancient market stalls. Visitors traced the fleeting symbols with their feet, becoming temporary scribes in a ritual that blurred past and present. Meanwhile, poet Rajiv Mohan's collection Ocean Lit Letters reimagines the stones as love notes flung into the waves, their fragmented phrases, cinnamon stardust, sailor's spine bent like a question mark, giving voice to merchants whose names history erased. Literature, too, has seized on their mystery. Best-selling author Claire North's The Silent Cargo spins a thriller around Script 14, fictionalizing it as a murdered scribe's encrypted accusation against a Bronze Age tyrant. While historians bristled at the liberties taken, the real stone records olive oil shipments, not regicide. The novel's success reveals a hunger to personify these artifacts. North defended her approach. Archaeology tells us what happened. Art asks what it felt like. This tension between fact and empathy plays out in galleries worldwide. A Berlin exhibit overlays projected translations onto actual stones, their glyphs dissolving into animated scenes of bustling harbors and storm-racked ships, inviting viewers to step into the scribe's sandals. Yet artistic reinterpretation isn't just about storytelling, it's a form of experimental archaeology. When composer Liu Chen scored an orchestral piece using the stone's symbol frequencies as musical notes, something uncanny happened. The dissonant chords played on replica lyres and drums mirrored stress patterns found in linear, a tablet suggesting ancient scribes might have heard their scripts as much as wrote them. Similarly, choreographer Amara Kassam's dance piece Chisel and Wave translates glyphs into movement. A zigzag becomes a sailor's stumble, a spiral transforms into the relentless pull of currents. Audiences leave not with dry facts, but with muscle memory of the stone's rhythms. The most provocative works confront the stone's silence directly. Yemeni artist Nadia Al-Tajir's erased series laser scans original inscriptions, then prints them onto slabs of salt, a medium that slowly dissolves during exhibitions, mirroring how time eats away at meaning. Every translation is a betrayal, her exhibit notes declare. These stones survived the sea only to drown in our assumptions. It's a stark counterpoint to romanticized retellings, forcing viewers to grapple with all we'll never truly know. From blockbuster novels to avant-garde performances, these creative acts do more than entertain, they become a kind of parallel decipherment. Where scholars parse symbols, artists parse humanity, using pigment and metaphor to bridge gaps that carbon dating cannot. The stones, once pragmatic tools, now sail into new waters, their cargo holds overflowing with dreams as vast as the oceans that preserved them. Imagine a storm-scoured beach where a diver's flashlight glints off an unfamiliar edge, not coral or wreckage, but a 28th trade stone, its surface etched with symbols that bridge worlds. Possibility alone sends shivers through academia. One newly discovered slab could be the missing link confirming Bronze Age trade between Rome and Han Dynasty China, a connection long suspected but never proven. Picture glyphs resembling both Mediterranean amphora marks and early Chinese seal script, their hybrid language whispering of silk exchanged for glass across continents we thought were strangers. Such a find wouldn't just fill gaps, it would explode the boundaries of ancient globalization, proving our ancestors wove connections far tighter than modern maps suggest. But trade routes aren't the only secrets these stones might reveal. A hypothetical fragment dredged from the Bay of Bengal could rewrite disaster history. Symbols depicting walls of water, followed by abrupt cargo tallies ending midline, might corroborate oral traditions of a forgotten tsunami, one that erased entire ports from memory. Unlike modern sensors, these stones wouldn't just date the catastrophe, they'd capture its human toll. The frantic handwriting of a scribe recording damaged goods as waves breached the hull would make ancient climate change feel visceral, not abstract. The real game changer, a stone confirming the existence of legendary trading hubs like Tartessos or the elusive Land of Punt. These weren't just cities, they were linchpins of economies, their locations debated for centuries. A single ledger mentioning tariffs paid in Puntite ebony or Tartessian silver could triangulate their positions through mineral analysis, turning myth into GPS coordinates. Even more tantalizing are the personal stories waiting to surface. A merchant's complaint about pirate raids near Sicily would prove ancient maritime crime networks operated with sophistication rivaling modern syndicates. A hastily carved prayer to a previously unknown sea goddess could reveal spiritual practices lost to time. Every new stone risks turning academic consensus upside down. For decades, historians assumed Mediterranean traders avoided the open Atlantic. But what if one surfaces near Ireland's coast, its glyphs detailing trade for North Sea amber? Suddenly, Caesar's accounts of tin islands beyond Gaul shift from exaggeration to fact. Or consider the domino effect if a stone's cargo list includes crops like maize long believed unknown outside the Americas until Columbus. Such a discovery wouldn't just alter history books, it would force us to rethink humanity's entire timeline of exploration. The thrill lies in the unpredictability. These stones refuse to play by scholarly rules. A fragment dismissed as a fisherman's tally might, under spectral imaging, expose the earliest known example of maritime insurance. A child's practice scratches could preserve the only surviving sample of a vanished dialect. Even failures would be revelatory. A stone bearing untranslatable symbols might represent a trader's private shorthand, reminding us that not all communication was meant for eternity. What keeps archaeologists awake isn't just the potential answers, but the questions we haven't thought to ask. A 28th stone might not fit any existing framework, its glyphs pointing to cultures entirely absent from the historical record. Like a message in a bottle tossed between millennia, each discovery holds the power to make the familiar strange and the impossible undeniable. The ocean has already gifted us 27 time capsules. Who's to say it won't offer 27 more? The 27 ocean-written scripts are more than artifacts, they're living conversations that never got to say goodbye. Think about that merchant off the coast of Crete, pressing his chisel into stone as waves battered his ship, unaware his words would outlast empires. These aren't just records of cargo and contracts, they're the receipts of humanity's first attempts at globalization, written not by kings chronicling their conquests, but by ordinary people navigating an unpredictable world. What makes them extraordinary is their sheer resilience. While papyrus disintegrated and wood rotted, these stones waited patiently in the dark, some for over 3,000 years, until technology caught up with their secrets. That battered ledger from a Phoenician shipwreck, it didn't just list jars of olive oil. It held the blueprint for modern contract law, complete with penalty clauses for spoiled goods. The scribbled prayer to Poseidon, a window into how commerce and spirituality shared the same cramped deck. Even the doodles in the margins, those crude sketches of fish and ships, remind us that boredom and creativity are timeless companions. Yet for all we've decoded, the stones still guard mysteries. Why does Script 7's spiral pattern appear in shipwrecks from Malta to Oman, despite those cultures having no known contact? What desperate message was the Carthaginian captain trying to convey when he carved 14 identical lightning bolts into Script 22 as his ship went down? Every answered question births 3 new ones, and that's the real magic. These stones aren't just teaching us about the past. They're teaching us how much we still don't know. The future of discovery has never looked brighter. Machine learning algorithms now scan symbols at speeds impossible for human eyes, while deep-sea drones explore wrecks too dangerous for divers. Citizen scientists worldwide pore over digital scans, their fresh perspectives spotting patterns specialists might miss. And somewhere beneath the Mediterranean's shimmering surface, perhaps nestled in the sand near an undiscovered Roman galley or wedged in the ruins of a Minoan trading post, the next stone waits with its own story to tell. So the next time you walk past a modern shipping container or tap out an emoji-laden text, remember, you're part of the same unbroken chain that began with those ancient merchants and their stone tablets. The mediums have changed, but the human impulses remain: to connect, to trade, to leave some mark that says, "I was here." The ocean gave these voices back to us against all odds. Now it's our turn to keep listening. If these echoes from the deep resonated with you, share which script fascinated you most in the comments. And for more journeys into history's unsolved mysteries, dive into our playlist where lost cities and cryptic artifacts await. The past isn't finished speaking, we just have to learn how to